Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is policies to improve well-being. So some things I've learned about what policies can or cannot do, the long-term impacts, even using cohort data to understand why some policies might or might not work. So when we talk about policies to improve child well-being, usually one of the main references is this particular study called the Carolina Abecedarian Project. So this is a small-scale trial that I worked on extensively when I was in Chicago, where poor children born in the 70s, like a sample of them was half of it randomly assigned to a super rich early environment. So these children were put in a super enriched daycare for the first 5 years of their life, where they spent 8 hours a day for 50 weeks a year. And this happened in Chapel Hill, and it was a very frontier experiment. This was evaluated by randomized trial with 111 children. And the key thing about this program to me is the fact that it was a very comprehensive program, what we would say like omnibus or integrated. So the kids were provided inputs to improve their well-being under a variety of dimensions. They were given cognitive and behavioral stimulation. They were provided basic healthcare on the sides. They were provided nutrition. So it really emphasizes the importance of this holistic set of inputs that, given that the different dimensions are interconnected and they all interact with each other, we really need to intervene and try to improve the different factors. And so perhaps or surprisingly, this program message showed huge benefits to the life of the children throughout adolescence, adulthood, and across several dimensions, ranging from education to labor market outcomes to social care. The papers that I worked on in particular have shown improvements in health across a variety of dimensions, ranging from a significant reduction in the prevalence of chronic conditions. And we have critically shown that these reductions can be explained in half by the development of the child in the first 2 years of life. So this is quite important to show that when you have long-term effects, it's important to understand where do they come from, because it tells you something about like the timing and in this case, the type of intervention. Now, of course, it's all very nice. We know there are a few of these small-scale trials. Many of them are well done, tend to work, high quality, closely monitored. What's really much harder instead is try to develop and improve child well-being at scale, like we would like to do with Europe and in general with the whole world. And there's been a very good example in England in trying to do that, which was the Sure Start program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This was a quite bold, ambitious program, which was set out by the Labour government of Tony Blair in 1998, and sadly progressively dismantled by the Tories to the point that now it doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, what this program was trying to do, try to give parents of under fives as much they needed to improve their children's lives and their own lives. So they were centers where there was a variety of services for parents of under fives, which are open to everyone. They were universal, so that no one would feel stigma in entering this center. And they were ranging from some childcare provision, stay and play. There were health visitors in this center. There were some basic health signposting, and there were also services for the parents to help them to signpost to Job Center Plus or to give them training programs. Now, in some recent work that I've done with my colleagues at the Institute for Fiscal Studies, we have shown that this program improved the well-being of the children, in particular the psychological, physical health, until they reach adolescence, so until 15 years of age. And this particular piece of evidence that I show here is actually derived from one of the longitudinal studies that we use in this evaluation, which is the UK HLS, and here we show that if a child lived in an area when it was 0 to 5, where there was a greater Sure Start coverage, then you will see that the child will have improved his mental health, measured by the Strength and Difficulty questionnaire, especially in internalizing domain, and in general had better self-reported health. Now, what else have we learned? So many of these programs, apart from the Sure Start, which also provide the services on site, actually just provide information to parents. So programs like home visiting, where health professionals visit the parents and help them with the different dimensions of breastfeeding versus immunizations. They just essentially inform parents about what's the best way to improve their children's life chances. And so it comes natural to think that then something like just improving education in a generation would improve the life chances of the next one. And again, this is what we are showing in this paper, which is based in this case on the millennium cohort, where parents were, some of them, affected by a change in the UK education policies, which forced them to stay one more term in school. So this is a change in the time spent in school for the parents. What we see is that the children of the parents who stayed longer in school because of the reform and actually better child well-being, both in terms of cognitive development and psychological development. So sometimes, providing information is critically important. Some parents might just not know. Of course, education can provide more than that, but that goes a long way. Now, the next important question that we can learn from these cohort studies is not only evaluating existing policies, but also think about when will be the optimal timing for a policy. And so let's go back to the Southampton Women's Study and seeing whether starts intervening in utero when the mother is pregnant might actually have an impact beyond health at birth. So this table here is taken from the same paper that I showed you before. The one uses fetal ultrasound scans and looks at the importance of the development utero, which is this first 3 terms here, versus child health at birth in improving child well-being at 3 years. And what essentially showed, if you look at these like starred outcomes, starred estimates here, it does show that improved development in utero does actually matter for reducing child hyperactivity problems at 3, even when we account for health at birth. So again, evidence that it's important to think about the timing of policies and think about, you do want to definitely start before you see things like, without the needs of ultrasound. Again, one more piece of evidence which speaks to the importance of which dimensions to target. And this is, again, from the 1970 British cohort study, same papers with James Ackman as the one where I show you differences by education. And this shows that it really is important to target the different dimensions of child well-being because each dimension might have a return in terms of different adult outcome. So in this particular case here, we're looking at a health behavior in adulthood, very costly, being a daily smoker. And we see that if we have an intervention which is able to push the child up the distribution, then IQ, cognitive development of the child doesn't do much here, but improving the physical well-being, and in particular the emotional well-being of the child, goes a great deal by reducing the probability of being a daily smoker in adulthood. And more about using cohorts for targeting policies along, similar lines in the same paper where we looked at differences across cohorts in child social emotional well-being, we see that instead, if we consider labor market outcomes in education, then cognitive skills play a more important role, and also externalizing behavior, so a dimension of social emotional well-being matters for education. So again, it's really important to consider which dimensions to target with which policy to achieve which outcomes we're interested in to improve as a policymaker. One last application in terms of policy making is it's very useful to include variables, collect data, and also try to understand why policy might not work, because otherwise we might not find anything and not knowing why. And this graph here is taken from a study that I conducted during the COVID. So this is data collected by myself on a sample of first-time parents of under 5s in England. And the reason why I collect this data was the following. During the first lockdown, childcare centers were closed in England, like everywhere, but they were open for parents of eligible children. But also when the centers reopened, not every parent sent their kids to childcare. And of course, one of the reasons was because there was risk. But the other reason, which is true also outside of COVID, is because, well, some parents might think childcare is not effective, might spend time with their children, think that their time is more effective than that. And this is exactly what parents told us. So we asked them, imagine you have 100 children of the same age as yours living in England. How many do you expect to reach good level of development, which is the standard government target for reception year children, under each of the following scenarios? And we asked them to think this expected level of development in terms of 3 dimensions of investment: child attending childcare, parents playing with the child playing with friends. And the parents, when they ranked them, they essentially gave the higher weight of parental play as compared to childcare. So they thought the parental play is relatively more productive to improve child development than childcare. Their two are partially substitutes, and the importance of parental play is even higher than childcare for smaller children. So what does this tell us? It's important to understand not only, evidence-based for policy making when policy work, but also why policies might not work. In this case, if parents have incorrect beliefs and actually childcare is way more important, then one might provide information to them about the importance of childcare. If parents actually are right and the childcare centers are low quality, then that's where the policy need to act.